The following is a land acknowledgement from A.R.T. New York. We would like to take this time to acknowledge that, wherever we're currently located on Turtle Island, otherwise known as North America, we are in occupied territory. A.R.T. New York's membership in the 5 boroughs of New York City operates on the unceded ancestral land of the Lenape, Wappinger, Canarsie, Rockaway, and Matinecock communities. We want to honor and celebrate all of these Indigenous communities, their elders past and present, as well as future generations. We also want to take this time to acknowledge that after there was stolen land, there were stolen people. We want to honor the generations of displaced and enslaved people that build and continue to build the country we occupy today. Since we are gathered today in virtual space, let's also take a moment to consider the legacies of colonization embedded within the technologies, structures, and ways of thinking we use every day. We're using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many Indigenous communities. Even the technologies that are central to much of the art we make leave significant carbon footprints, contributing to changing climates that disproportionately affect Indigenous peoples worldwide. We invite you to join us in acknowledging all of this as well as our shared responsibility to make good of this time and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, anti-racism, and allyship. Thank you. The virtual part of the land acknowledgement was written by Adrian Wong of Spiderweb Show in Ontario, Canada. To learn more about whose land you are on, visit native-land.ca. Thank you.
Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Kate Trammel. I will be your instructor today for including disability accommodations in the workplace. My pronouns are she, her. My visual description for today is I am a white female identifying person with shoulder length brown blondish hair. I have on a white collared shirt with a black tank top and turquoise earrings. Behind me you'll see some framed artwork. On my screen, you will see a pink call-out bubble that says in black text, including disability accommodations in the workplace. On the bottom, there's a white background with the black font that says Kate Trammel, Arts Administrator and Educator. So in this webinar, we will be delving into some useful tips you can bring to your workplace, whether it's a theater company or another like-minded arts organization, so you can become a more inclusive place during the interview process, the onboarding and hiring of a person with a disability, or anyone who might identify as neurodiverse, and everything in between. So these views are my own, both as a professional and as an autistic advocate. So there's a lot more to learn past this, but hopefully this will get you started in exploring how to expand, how you can accommodate anyone and everyone in your workplace. So on this slide, I've put my name and that I've labeled myself an arts administrator, educator, and autistic advocate. For my education and career profile, I was diagnosed at 11 with what is now considered autism spectrum disorder, ASD for short. I was fortunate enough to have a lot of services throughout my K-12 career with what was called an individualized education plan, or an IEP, until I was in grade 11. I was able to complete high school with a diploma, and I later earned a BFA from Sam Houston State University and an MA from New York University. A lot of the resources that I found to be helpful through the time that I had an IEP were consistent check-ins, and I was able to attend some meetings that I was able to speak with my teachers and administrators along with my parents to understand what was working, what was not working, and to find ways to continue to make sure that I was being successful in all my classes. Sometimes I would also get notes in advance to help me keep up with some lectures and stay focused in certain classes. I was also very attached to planned deadlines. I was definitely one of those students that was very on top of their own schedule and kept everything in planners and notebooks to help visualize and track my progress. So a lot of those same fundamentals that I found useful as a student transferred to my career. So you might be thinking, why aren't people with disabilities getting work? A few bullet points that I've outlined are a start. Persons with a disability are less likely to have completed a post-secondary degree and sometimes high school diploma than those with no disability. Certain offices or theaters do not meet all of the ADA accessibility criteria, i.e. ramps and elevators, and certain symptoms of their disability affect their interpersonal skills, i.e. inability to make small talk, anxiety, and their executive functioning, their working memory, flexible thinking, and self-control. So in grades K to 12, a person with a disability might be a student with an IEP. If it is a public school and the student and parent pursues services, then they are entitled to receive an individualized education plan throughout their academic career. It's done in collaboration to set the student up for success. On this slide, we're going to delve into more detail with alternative high school commencement credentials for students with IEPs in New York. First off, we have the Career Development and Occupational Studies, or CDOS, commencement credential. Students complete 4 54-hour units or 216 hours of work-based learning, career, and technical education, or CTE courses, including at least 54 hours of work-based learning. Students complete and annually review a career plan, and the school completes a work skills employability profile detailing the student's mastery of the commencement level CDOS learning standards, technical knowledge, and work-related skills and academic achievements. Another credential they can earn is the Skills and Achievement Commencement Credential, or the SAC. For this credential, several aspects are incorporated, such as academics, including instruction in the CDOS learning standards, career development opportunities to engage in instructional and work preparation experiences that occur both in the school and in the community. They also plan preparation for post-transition options, including independent living skills, community-based instruction, and work-based learning opportunities. These credentials are for a particular subset of students in K to 12 who are earning a lot of these special services through IEPs. What's important to understand about these credentials is they are supposed to earn this in addition to a high school regents in New York State. Some may not earn enough credits to earn a full diploma. Neither the CDOS nor the SAC is equivalent to a high school diploma, and neither is acceptable for college admissions where a high school diploma or GED is required. So this prevents access to academic programs after they leave public school. Students with these credentials should not be discredited or eliminated from an employment process because there are benefits of a CDOS and SAC credentials. A CDOS commencement credential student might spend the last few years of their K-12 career learning job skills and might be trained to do certain work tasks depending on their work plan. Whereas a SAC credential student might be able to perform trade skills such as carpentry or other technical theater roles. Some of these students are training to enter the workforce at a more efficient rate than some of their academic counterparts. Therefore, they can become an asset to any theater company, big or small. Before we move on to the next section of our course, I wanted to highlight some New York-based organizations and agencies already at work with assisting people with disabilities in finding employment. JobPath works with people with disabilities and employers on creating customized employment. They pair candidates with both on-site and off-site job coaches during the onboarding phase. Access VR, which is a state agencies, can post a job to their network through work orders and offer wage reimbursement programs to companies willing to hire a person with a disability. The Office for People with Developmental Disabilities, or more widely known as OPWDD, is a statewide office that offers a pathway to employment program. They assist people with disabilities with transitioning from high school and into employment. Links to all of their websites will be provided in the resource section. Now that we've covered the background behind how a disabled person completes their education, let's discuss some accommodations for the interview process. Some free accommodation options for a job interview process include expanding the education requirements to include alternative credentials, requesting work samples or tasks in place of a cover letter, providing names and visual descriptions of the panelists conducting the interview in the appointment confirmation, and providing the list of interview questions to the candidates in advance. This slide provides an example of a job description you might post for a website or a listserv. It's very specific as to what the job will entail for a digital marketing manager. We're listing who that person would report to, specific social media platforms that you intend to have them oversee once hired, and some clear qualifications so that they know exactly what they'll be using and what they're expecting once on the job. You can even use this in their contract once they're hired so they have a clear structure of the job once they begin. Similar to how we began our webinar video, visual descriptions can be provided at the start of a video interview or an in-person interview. They can even be written in an email. Once you're confirming the interviewees, you can use this sample provided of what you can write in an email. This is specifically helpful to a person that might have a visual disability. You will be interviewed by the following people: John Barman, he, him, artistic director, a Caucasian male with gray and black hair and glasses; Kate Trammel, she, her, managing director, a Caucasian woman with blonde hair and glasses. On this slide, I'm really driving the point home of providing a list of interview questions up to 1 week in advance of the interview. Most of the time, you and your team know what questions you want to ask every single candidate for a given position. Providing them to the candidate far enough in advance will allow each one to prepare what to say and eliminate some anxiety that might come up on the day of the interview. Anxiety over what they might say might lead them to not giving their best impression through an interview. Since they would likely prepare a presentation of some kind once they're hired, a well-prepared interview gives you a chance to see how they do once you give them direction as to what you are looking to learn about them. For the job posting itself, let's review some accessibility best practices. The shortcuts for making the document accessible: have all text written in a sans serif font. Arial or Calibri are usually best, and write it in at least size 14 to 18. Also provide alternative text for any pictures or logos, and use heading styles to begin paragraphs for screen reader capabilities. Now let's say you found the perfect person to hire. Let's explore some accommodations on the job. Some free or inexpensive ways to implement accommodations include establish clear boundaries with employees up front, using project management softwares to assign tasks and deadlines, Microsoft Planner, Asana, Google Docs, and finding additional resources through the accommodation search on Ask Jan or the Job Accommodation Network. We'll explore each of these examples in the next few slides. In the beginning, it is important to establish clear boundaries. To establish these, you might provide an organizational chart with names and roles of each person within the company. Talk them through how they might be related to the department they'll be working with. Mentioning appropriate methods of communication, i.e., emails instead of texts with certain people, is also helpful. This also helps them understand how each person should be appropriately approached. Establishing a consistent routine for check-in meetings that can establish the tone and workload can also be very helpful. Choose one of the following: 15-minute check-in at the beginning of each day, or 30-minute check-in one day per week. Picking a routine that you can consistently stick to is important for this. So only offer what you can maintain long-term. Project management apps have been proven to be very useful for those who need a visual description of the work that needs to be done. Asana is a paid subscription app that allows teams to create buckets of work and task lists for each person to accomplish. It can track both progress and assign calendars of due dates for each task that needs to be done. Microsoft Planner is included in most Microsoft 365 accounts and is similar to Asana. Teams are able to create task lists in buckets of work. In this example that I've highlighted, we see that the bucket of work is labeled adjudication. In the example in this slide, it has two tasks that are outstanding. Put out a call for PA adjudicators and put out a call for VA adjudicators. They both have a due date of February 28th, 2023, and you have the option to assign a team member to either task. You can also add a task as new information is available. What's great about this feature is that the user can check off a task once it's been completed by clicking on the circle. You can also see which tasks have been completed in lists, so you can track progress of work. Google Docs now have some capabilities to track some tasks as well. In this example, we see a list that's written out some tasks that need to be completed 2 weeks from a show and 1 week from a show using a bulleted list that's built into a Google Doc. You're able to write out the specifics of the tasks and maybe assign a person to the tasks. But with this bulleted list, you are able to check off that it's been done by clicking on the box, and it performs a strike-through once it's done. This might be useful for those who prefer a written list over an app, and this can also be shared with all the team members who need to keep up with certain tasks for a certain project at a given time. Of course, there are so many other accommodations that can be found for various disabilities. Let's take a moment to explore other accommodations through JAN, aka the Job Accommodation Network. When you get to the landing page for the Job Accommodation Network, you'll see a menu of options up top. You'll want to scroll over to Accommodation Search. Click. Once you get to the page that's labeled SOAR, or the Searchable Online Accommodation Resource, you'll have a drop-down menu to search for specific work-related functions and disabilities or other limitations. So just to demonstrate how you might be able to use this tool, let's try with autism. So, click search. All right, so we're taken to another page. For the narrow results pane on the left-hand side, you can filter search results based on disability, limitation, work-related function, resource, topic, audience, document type, industry, occupation, format, even language. Yeah, for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and click on the first featured result for autism spectrum. Right, so once we get to this page, there are a lot of great sections to provide lots of information. So we have the technical definition of autism spectrum disorder and a little bit more history behind it. They also provide some questions that you might ask yourself and your team of how the disability relates to the job performance. But what's really great about this tool is it provides a box of accommodation ideas. For some ideas that are based off of the limitation that you're noticing, then you have the drop-down menu provide some options. So let's say you have an autistic employee that is having some trouble managing time. Click on the drop-down menu. It provides some suggestions of products and apps to help with this, even some links for other job coaches, and even strategies that you can consider implementing into the workload. For instance, task flowcharts and even checklists like I was suggesting in the earlier example. Okay, and also you can search for work-related function accommodation ideas. So let's say that your autistic employee might be sensitive to light. Yeah, it provides examples so that you can work to make this accommodation happen. So like flexible schedule, which usually isn't too much of a strain on resources, or other filters and lights that might be a little bit more effective so that they will be effective themselves. But there's lots of great tools that you can look for in this. The sky's really the limit, so you can use this link to really go through and find a lot of great treasures here. Well, that's all I have for you for now. I hope that you found the tools that we discussed useful, and I thank you so much for spending your time with me. You may keep in touch by either emailing me or connecting with me on Instagram or LinkedIn. I would love to hear how you were able to use these tools in your planning process to either hire a new employee or to help with operations with your current ones. Thank you again so much for your time and participation. I want to leave you with this. Creating an inclusive workplace not only helps to close the unemployment gap, it establishes an organized and efficient workplace where creativity can thrive.